Welcome to the Nightly Nuge. You know what, Ted? You and I talk on the phone at least once a day, and then we do the Nightly Nuge every night. But the other day, you called me and you were as mad as I've heard you in a long, long time. And I want to it follows up on the heels of what we talked about yesterday. The left, if they don't get their way, they're going to revolt. Okay, that's what they say. Well, it seems like those in power, some of these out of control bureaucrats, they believe they can push conservative Americans anywhere and everywhere because we will just take it. Ted, you were involved in kind of a little bit of a standoff this last week. It's kind of heartbreaking to me that it's come to this, but tell our listeners what happened to you last week and why it's so doggone important that they stand up and not allow it to happen to them.
Well, first and foremost, thank you, everybody, for celebrating the Nightly Nuge, Truth, Logic, and Common Sense orgy with Keith and I, because it's very, very important that we spotlight the evil and the negative to maximize the positive and the good. Good over evil. That's really what the Nightly Nuge is about, and that's what I'm committed to, because I've been in the crosshairs of the propaganda ministry for the last 50 years because I carry a gun and I eat venison. They would attack me because I'm violent, because I believe in keeping and bearing arms. I mean, literally, the media just went berserk, and then they make up all these nasty, hate-filled stories about me because they can't debate me, because intellectually they're helpless. The point being is that I'm an activist. I'm actually participating in the sacred experiment of self-government. And in Michigan, they're suing me, the state of Michigan, under Gretchen Whitmer, this horrible communist Joe Biden gangster family crime member, and her attorney general, I don't even know her name. These people are just violating their oath to the Constitution every day. And let me set this up by letting you know that the Department of Natural Resources, who I pay their salary, the hunters and fishermen and trappers and outdoor enthusiasts in Michigan pay the salary of the Department of Natural Resources. And these clowns, these idiots, actually are suing me for having feral Russian boar. Well, I don't want to help you people out. You probably went to college, so let the guitar player help you out. Feral is domestic livestock that has escaped. My pigs are in Sunrise Acres. They haven't escaped, means they can't be feral. You're suing me for something that doesn't exist. And then they call them Russian boar. You know, there's no such species as a Russian boar. I actually saw the Discovery Channel talking about the invasion of Russian boar. They had footage of sows. Boar isn't a species. It's a gender. The only Russian boars that exist are male pigs that live in Russia, but they're suing me for having Russian boar, none of which I have. And most of them are sows. They're females. A boar is a male pig, and a sow is a female pig. I don't have Russian boars. I don't even have Russian sows. But the language in the suit is insane. The people who created the lawsuit are insane. And here in Texas, I'm afraid the Texas Parks and Wildlife are equally as guilty. I spent the day, I'll not mention their names, with a husband and wife who have been breeding deer for their family hunting on a high fence operation, which is ubiquitous across Texas, tens of thousands of high fence properties, because we have exotic animals from around the world that we brought in back in the 1930s because they're fascinating, they're gorgeous. Instead of raising chickens and sheep and goats and cattle, we raise kudu and gemsbok, and fallow, and sika, and axis, and aoudad, and blackbuck. And when Pakistan and India ran out of blackbuck antelope, they came to Texas to start their herds back up and realized that you have to have a science-based, sustained yield hunting season so that blackbuck are worth more than chickens. And now they're thriving in those countries that have followed the conservation model of America, sustained yield, harvesting the surplus every year for value, billions and billions of dollars right here in Texas and every state, billions in every state is generated with the unbelievable man hours of recreation for hands-on conservation, harvesting the surplus, which is scientifically, biologically, and morally essential. And in Texas, they made this old farmer and his wife cry. They were bawling their eyes out because for 30 years they had been raising deer, and then the Dr. Fauci gangster syndrome struck, and now somebody in Texas Parks and Wildlife like Governor Abbott, who refuses to secure our border. Oh, he does a little something here and a little something there, all posing because he was at the World Economic Forum. And I think Governor Abbott might have some financial ties to the communist Chinese and the gangsters of the New World Order. Put that in your pipe and smoke it for a second, children. So these Texas Park and Wildlife jackbooted thugs, 6 of them, a director, a whitetail biologist, 2 veterinarians, one from the USDA. You know, the USDA, whose food pyramid includes chemicals, cancerous, carcinogenic chemicals and dyes and sugar. They got like some sugary cereal at the top of the healthy food pyramid. The United States of America, the USDA, United States Department of Agriculture, is intentionally and knowingly poisoning our Roundup Ready food. So they're represented there. One of these veterinarian gals had a smirk on their face, and I won't reproduce what I did to them, but I let them know that they should be ashamed of themselves. How dare you march in here with your scam of CWD when episodic hemorrhagic disease has killed millions and millions of deer, and chronic wasting disease I don't think has killed any, because in order to find chronic wasting disease, you gotta kill the animal and look for the mutated prion. They are literally destroying high fence and deer breeding operations because the donors to the bureaucracy, the big money donors at the King Ranch and the Kennedy Ranch, who I love, but they are abusing their power, and they've got Governor Abbott and his appointed Texas Parks and Wildlife scam artists shutting down those ranches that are bringing in more revenues than the heretofore revenues to the King and the Kenny and South Texas ranches, because they got top dollar for 160, 170, 180 and up deer. That's a record-keeping measurement for the stagness. Everybody's moved by the stagness of a big deer. Well, these ranches are selling them now, and they're 300 inch, they're 350 inches. Now, I'm not a fan of that. I would never buy one. I like just shooting a nice deer. I'd rather shoot a doe and eat her backstrap. But I like a nice, natural, native deer with a little bit of a rack. That's more than inspiring for this old Michigan deer hunter. But these guys are coming in with the lie, the scam of CWD, and destroying family operations. There's CWD has never transmitted to a human being. It has never hurt a deer population. Wisconsin spent $53 million to try to figure out what to do with CWD, and their deer herd continues to expand. Nobody in Wisconsin has ever got a case of chronic wasting disease from the deer that we eat. We kill deer and we eat them. It's the best diet in the world. My point being is that you Texas Parks and Wildlife jackbooted thugs should be ashamed of yourselves. You're ignoring episodic hemorrhagic disease and going after this lie of chronic wasting disease. And we had, what was his name? Ditchkoff. Stephen Ditchkoff. We had him on. Did we have him on the Nightly Nuge?
Yeah, we did.
And I had him on the Real America Voice Spirit Campfire, and I'm going to have him on the Ted Nugent Spirit of the Wild show on the Pursuit channel, because this guy's knowledgeable and dedicated. But did I or did I not put a dead-end brick wall in front of him? You can't tell me that if I throw a bucket of water in the pond, I'm going to make the fish more wet. They're already wet. I could add all the water I want. They can't get any wetter. And I could throw out all the corn and sugar beets and supplemental feed I want. And they're not going to have any more nose-to-nose contact than they have in their everyday lives. Right. That's the metaphor of metaphors right there. So I shut him down with, it's easily transmitted if they kiss each other. They're kissing each other. They're kissing each other everywhere they live. So my point is that I stood up for the deer breeders of Texas and the family ranches in Texas that love to have quality deer management. And they still shut this poor guy's place down. He's going to have to kill his deer. But I let him know they're not going to shut me down. And you're not going to kill my deer. My deer are healthy. How could you possibly think you know more about my deer on Spirit Wild Ranch in your office on a computer screen than me walking my sacred grounds every day. The bureaucrats are lying, they're abusing their power, they're criminal, they're corrupt, and they're working for the dollar guys in South Texas, and they should be absolutely ashamed of themselves. In fact, the Texas Parks and Wildlife people, they're not even real Texans. They don't remember the Alamo. They should be ashamed of themselves and move up to Chicago where they belong.
Wow. Well, tomorrow night, Ted, it's the free-for-all edition of the Nightly Nuge. I want to talk about maybe Hollywood moving down to your home state of Texas, and I also want to talk a little bit about a circus act. All tomorrow night on our entertainment night of the Nightly Nuge. You ready to roll tomorrow night?